Welcome to the Fatherhood Fitness Podcast. I'm your host, Anthony Pluff. Each week, we will cover various topics that dads struggle with in their fitness journey. I'll give you actionable steps that you can apply right away, not only to take back control of your own health, but so you're able to be a better example for your kids too. All right, welcome in to this week's episode of the Fatherhood Fitness Podcast. We have Brian Fitzsimmons with us today. Brian was with us back in October, episode 37. So he's back with us today. I'll let him introduce himself, and then we're going to jump right in.
Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm also known by Coach Fitz with 2 Z's. That might be where you see me on the interwebs. But yeah, I train moms 40 plus and help them to trim body fat, get stronger, and feel incredible.
Awesome. Yeah, appreciate you jumping on today. I know you specifically work with, moms over 40, but you have lots of experience working with, different populations and stuff, dads included as well. And, although, there are differences between moms and dads when it comes to training, nutrition, things like that. A lot of the things that, we're going to talk about are very applicable to both, right? I think there's a misconception sometimes that, women need to do one thing, men need to do another, but for 99% of people, you could probably get away with doing the exact same thing and still get great results. Would you agree?
Absolutely. I mean, the only thing that really changes a whole lot with men to women is preferences. Other than like the stuff that works.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think, one of the things, just kind of getting started, kind of staying consistent with fitness and things like that. As a dad, my life has gotten significantly more busy over the past couple of years. We have 3 kids now in less than 4 years. And I know a lot of your clients, have kids as well. They're busy, they're working full time. By the time they get home, the last thing they want to do is sit there and prepare an entire meal. I used to always kind of joke around with my wife. It's like, I hate cooking because it takes me 10 minutes to eat the meal. It takes an hour and a half to cook it and stuff. I have backed off that approach a little bit, but once you get home from work and by the time you do sit down for dinner and finally relax, like, how do you even get started? Like, where do you begin to start even thinking about fitness?
Yeah. I mean, for a lot of people, I know, like with a lot of my clients, by the time dinner rolls around, it's pretty much like not a lost cause, but it's kind of at that point where it's like, it just isn't consistent. Like it takes a lot of willpower at that point. So what we try to do, like, especially considering like we usually aim for like 2 to 4 workouts per week. So if the schedule is truly that nuts, like aiming for the 2 days to be Saturday, Sunday usually works out pretty well. But usually sometimes like when kids have their schedules when it comes to sports and things like that. If it's just a practice, you don't need to be at practice. I mean, if you want to, great. But I mean, if you have a free hour while your kids are doing their thing, you go and do yours. So drop the kids off at practice, you go to the gym. Ideally, I mean, that's assuming that it all lines up perfectly. But another thing that works out well is just like working with the time constraints that you have. So like, let's say, you only have 10, 20 minutes. Usually there's a few pockets like that during the day. And even though we say something's going to take an hour or 30 minutes, it's usually not that long. So when you have that free time in between tasks, like that 10, 20 minutes, doing these micro workouts, maybe once or twice a day, that pretty much can add up to a full workout. So doing things like that, or at the very like most extreme end with somebody who's had like the world's craziest schedule, I've suggested doing things like for anybody who's familiar with Strong First or Russian kettlebell certification, they have a concept called Grease the Groove, where basically you pick one exercise to do the entire day. And you don't do it to the point where you get tired. You don't do it to the point where form suffers, but you do a bunch of repetitions during the day. So prime example is like a pull-up. So you put a pull-up bar somewhere in your house, like say you're working from home. Every time you go to take a leak or anything like that, you hop up, do a pull-up with strict form, boom, that's one. And then you go do your thing, go work. And then next time you get up to get a drink, crank out a pull-up, and you do that throughout the day when you have breaks. So you're not getting tired, you're perfecting the pull-up and you're building some muscle and getting stronger. And you're able to do that pretty much with whatever the schedule throws at you.
Yeah, no, I think you touched on a lot of good things there. If your 2 days of working out are only Saturday and Sunday, like I think that's great. It's we like to call them the weekend warriors, but
Yes.
it kind of has a negative connotation, but there's nothing negative about that at all. Like ideally, maybe you could throw another one in during the week, but we all go through phases in life, and there are times it's just not going to happen. And what you said there too about just picking one exercise and just kind of doing it throughout the day. I didn't intentionally do this, or that's not what my mindset was, but like that's literally how I got started into like strength training and muscle building when I was younger. I think I was like middle school. I bought the perfect push-up handles,
Oh, I
and
love those things.
yeah, that they're all, I still have the original ones. I have the same ones I had since then. But I used to like in the summertime, not in school, I don't have practice or anything. And so during the day, I would play PlayStation. I would play like MLB The Show or something like that. And
Classic.
I was like, all right, well, if I'm going to be down here, playing, well,
Yeah.
I'm going to do something too. Like I just came up with this on my own. And after every inning I played, I did 10 push-ups. And so like, that adds up a lot, and I got
Yep.
pretty strong literally just doing push-ups when I play. I mean, you could either look at it as I was doing a lot of push-ups or playing a lot of PlayStation, but things like that I think are great. Getting up, like you said, getting up and go to the bathroom, do a couple do a couple squats, do a couple pull-ups or something. Somebody asked me that one of our friends, her and her husband were kind of talking about kind of things like that. She said every time I like brush my teeth, I go to the bathroom or something, I do calf raises and squats. Does that count as exercise? And I said, well, absolutely. Like, she's like, well, I'm not doing that much. So I'm like, well, that's okay. How many times do you go to the bathroom? If you're like me, I'm chugging water all day. Like I'm going to the bathroom multiple. You can get a great workout of it. And I
It's
think,
it's almost like a step count. It all adds up.
Exactly. And that's why I always say, like with a step count, right? You go cut your own grass. Like that counts as steps. You don't have to go for a 30-minute walk. Like just move. And that's, I think that's important too, is kind of like what you said there, these micro workouts, these short workouts. I think that's something where you really have to have a mindset shift, right? Because ideally, like, I mean, I'm kind of the same way. Like I used to be like, if I can't get my entire workout out, I don't want to do any of it, right? I'll do it tomorrow
Yep.
or something. And I've really gotten away from that. And like I try and go on a walk every single day, but I care more about that step count. I care more about my movement, right? There's times where I will go on a walk and I'm like, yeah, I went on a walk this morning. The sun wasn't even up yet. I feel pretty good. And at the end of the day, I was like, well, that's about all I did today because I was sitting
Yeah.
in a chair. And so I think, just things like that. I think movement, I and especially for parents, I think movement is probably going to be more of a priority than strict hour-long workouts each week.
Absolutely. And I mean, as trainers, like, especially on like social media, we latch on to these like guidelines where it's like, you got to get 6 to 10 sets per muscle group. You got to be doing 2 to 4 days a week in the gym. You got to be like pushing it to an RPE 8. You got to be doing this, got to be doing that. But at the end of the day, none of that matters if you can't pull it off. So, I mean, I was just talking with one of my clients a day or two ago, and she was like, yeah, I can't find time to do this. And I'm like, well, be honest with me. Like, do you watch Netflix? And she's like, well, yeah, I like me and my husband will watch that like 1 or 2 episodes a night. And I'm like, would it be possible like to work out during one of those episodes? And she's like, oh, that's allowed. I'm like, there's no rules here.
Yeah.
Like that's, if you can get it in, that's great. And I know all the dads listening right now. I mean, I'll bet money that at least one of them has like a wife that like, you don't want to look at your wife and say, I think you should start working out. But
Right.
like if you're like cranking out a couple push-ups while you're watching the show or something, she might look at you and be like, maybe I'll do some. Or like,
Yeah.
I'm going to do some squats while you do that. And then it kind of becomes a group thing and you just bounce off each other. And it can be a very productive thing as long as you throw the rule book out sometimes.
Yeah, and I found too, like this is a lot of times where I kind of get my mobility work in. Um, I um, I have a very I it's something I neglected for years, and so just previous injuries and things like that. And so, yeah, like watching Netflix at night with my wife after the kids are in bed, this is when I'm down on the floor. I got the foam roller, I'm doing some stretches and stuff. And it's like, I would much rather be laying on the couch, right? I'd be much rather not having to worry about anything. But just finding things like that, like you're gonna thank yourself later on. And I think the cool thing about fitness, like what I've learned about mobility too, and but mainly about fitness, nutrition and stuff, is typically like when you first get started, like it takes a lot more work, right? it,
Yeah.
it takes a lot more work to kind of get in a routine, get to where you want to be. But then maintaining that, most people, I feel like, at least with my clients, I know that like maintenance is something that many people have never actually experienced. They go through these cycles of losing weight and then they gain it back, and then they lose weight and then they gain it back. Same thing goes
Yeah.
with their workouts. They're very consistent, then they do nothing. They're very consistent and then they do nothing, right? And so getting to a point of maintenance is like is something like most people don't even know how to do, right? They either, maybe if they hire a coach, they don't
Yeah.
stick around long enough to actually get there. They get those initial results, they feel pretty good about themselves, and now what? Right? Like, because what got you there isn't going to necessarily be the same thing to do
Yeah.
to kind of maintain that there. So how do you work with your clients to try and to kind of make this more of, I guess my approach is always like, this is a lifestyle. So how do you kind of, how do you make that shift from, this is the phase where we got to like put a little bit more work in here, and then this is what, you're going to be able to stick to.
Yeah. I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head where a lot of people have never experienced the maintenance phase because, like, let's be honest, like when it comes to most people have like who have dieted to lose weight have lost a significant amount of weight. Like I talk to people every freaking week that are like, oh, I lost 40 pounds. I lost 60 pounds. I lost 100 pounds, but I gained it all right back because I was on Optavia or Weight Watchers. And we don't have a weight loss issue, really. Everybody has the grit, or not everybody, but most people have the grit and the persistence to do the damn thing, but there's no maintenance afterwards. We have a weight maintenance issue, not a weight loss issue. And that really comes down to education and planning ahead, because a lot of people, when they do their weight loss journey, they're like, all right, I'm going to lose 40 pounds. Then they get to 40 pounds and they're like, now what? I didn't really figure this was going to happen, so I didn't know to plan for it.
Right.
And that's where things like reverse dieting come in, where like transitioning mentally, instead of focusing on lose the weight, hop on the scale, focusing on performance, focusing on strength gain, muscle gain, and things like that, or just feeling better in general, like improving mobility or like addressing some like nagging pains that might have come up. It really just comes down to that mental reframing of like, okay, the weight loss part of this journey is over. Now I want to work on a different part of my life.
Mm-hmm.
And fitness can impact so many areas of your life. Like for those types of people that really struggle with energy, I mean, let's be honest, when you diet, your energy is pretty damn low, especially if you're like doing it for a while. So bringing the calories up, including more healthy foods, trying to get more sleep, that could be the next phase if you haven't addressed that already. Now, a great program should teach you that along the way, but a lot don't. And a lot of people that'll like white knuckle it, just focus on less food, more movement. So if that's you, next is let's get the energy back. And then that's going to allow you to be more productive at work, make more money, be more happy with your family, because you actually have the ability to be there physically and mentally, be there for your wife, be there for a bunch of different things. And some people, like if you're going out with friends on a hike or like trip to Vegas, you don't want to be that guy that can't like walk down the strip with the rest of the guys. So for some people, that could be the next reshift in focus.
Yeah. And I think, even my perspective in the, pretty recent past here is like when I'm, working with clients to first start, I kind of, we try and get them out of that mindset, like this is something that we're going to do for 12 weeks. Right. And I'm like, no, like this is something like, and I think when I first started coaching clients, I was kind of afraid to do that because like people want results right away, but it's not doing a service to them if I can't be honest with them. And so like the majority of my clients, almost every single one of them now, always signs up for 6 months because I'm realistic with them right up front. I tell them, like, you're going to see great results in 12 weeks. I can guarantee you that. Like, you're
Yeah.
going to see great results, but what's next, right? Just like you said, what's next? How can we maintain this? And the people, I had a client over the summer, he lost 25 pounds in 12 weeks. Like, that's incredible progress,
Yeah.
right? Like that's really
Man,
fast. And I always tell,
you work with the dads. That's got to be so nice. I'm trying to convince a bunch of women. I swear 10 pounds is great. You're only 150 pounds. 10 pounds is huge.
well, and I always got to frame it too, because like the more weight you have to lose, the easier it's going to be to lose weight, right? So if
Yeah.
you have 50 plus pounds, you're gonna be able to get away with a lot more, right? You don't have to track as accurately. You can guesstimate on a lot of things, but once you get kind of closer to your goal weight, progress slows way down. That tends to be about the halfway point, right? The point where people kind of give up. They think, oh, I've got this figured out. Oh, I'm no longer doing this. I'm no longer seeing progress and stuff. And so I've really tried to make it a point to tell them, like, these are the expectations, like, you're going to see great results. It's going to probably take you longer than you would like. But if we can solidify these habits over the next half year, you never have to do this again, because you're going to continue to lose weight. And that's what I try. Like, I always tell them, like, the beginning of the program can seem overwhelming because I'm trying to front load some things here, because I understand I'm not going to work with you forever. So I want to give you the tools, right? I want to give you the tools to help you succeed right away. Yep. And then we're going to work together to implement them and stuff. And I think, I don't know if it's because maybe we're on social media all day and we're comparing ourselves to others, but like, I don't, and maybe I also feel like this is relatively new, right? I mean, if you look at history books and things like that, you look at our grandparents, like, obesity, weight loss is still a fairly new concept, right? Like,
that generation of like, well, when they were storming Normandy, they didn't have to stretch.
Right. They were $1.30 dripping wet, right? Like,
but that was also back before McDonald's ruled the world.
Right.
Before you had ads in your face with every delicious thing that you could have at your fingertips.
Right. And, like, we live in, probably the most advanced world we've ever had, right? We have everything. We can get food at our fingertips, right? And we literally don't have to go anywhere. I
literally did that for lunch. I literally plugged in my Chipotle order, snagged it, and ran home for this podcast. I mean, it's a little too easy.
Yeah. And see, I went to Chipotle last night, but I went and ordered it there like a real American.
I waited in line like a true American.
I found my portion size of steak tends to be a little bigger if I order it there. But
and sometimes you get away with the double order and there's a miscommunication. That's honestly why I usually don't order it on the app, because I'm like, if that's the discount for standing there.
Yeah. Yeah. But like, I think things like that, though, like, that we're all kind of experiencing it together, right? It's a new world. We do have food, and food is, fortunately, unfortunately, however you want to look at it, it's always around us. Everything we do, we celebrate with food, everything, which is, I don't think there's anything wrong with some of those things. Like, I do the same thing, but like, if you don't have those tools, if you don't have those habits, you don't have somebody help kind of guide you, then it can be a real struggle to kind of just, get the initial ball rolling.
Yeah. And I know I was actually listening to, I think it was Lane Norton the other day, and he brought up a good point. And he's like, listen, like, food and the behavior surrounding it is one of the hardest things to curb, because like, let's take addiction, for example, because I know sometimes this is a touchy topic, but behavior is behavior. And some people don't have a healthy relationship with food. And I mean, when it comes to like alcohol, for example, over here, for those viewing, when it comes to alcohol, if you cut it out of your diet, you're not going to die. You're probably going to feel a whole lot better. When it comes to food, you can't cut out food from your life. You need it. Right. So like telling like a cocaine addict, just have a little bit. How do you think that's going to work? Or like telling somebody that like is strung out on like heroin or something, it's like, just have a little dab. It's fine. Just a little bit and we'll go from there. Doesn't really work that way, right? So it's a very complex topic. It's a very hard thing to navigate, but there are ways to do it. And it takes a little bit longer than we would like to. It usually doesn't work just cutting it out cold turkey, but there are ways to slowly over time get in a rhythm where you have a better relationship with food. And it's not such a white knuckle thing where you got to force yourself to diet. It's just, I enjoy eating this way and I keep my weight down.
Yeah, and see, I was gonna tell everybody that was sparkling water behind you, but that's cool. No.
That is Grey Goose. And for size comparison, it's about yay big.
Yeah.
Or no, sorry, Belvedere.
His entire torso, but
that was a gift from like 7 years ago. I still haven't finished it.
Oh my goodness. But
yeah,
no,
apparently when you turn 30, everybody gifts you booze.
Nice. But yeah, I think what you said there is kind of really important there about, you're never going to stop eating, right? That's what you're going to do it every single day. I'll let you answer this question, but I've had, multiple, like, I think food, like if you watch a kitty, if I watch my son eat, my son will always pass up on dessert if he's not hungry. I can't do that, right? Like I'm stuffed and there's cheesecake, I'm eating the cheesecake, right? But yeah. kids naturally kind of know, they stop when they're full, satisfied, or they stop when they're satisfied. They don't wait until they're full, they're not feeling good. And they kind of realize if they are getting to that point, they just stop, right? But we kind of feel like we need to eat the entire thing, right?
Well, because I think we are like, leftovers of the starving kids in Africa generation.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's I think I had that conversation with Jordan Syatt. He was on the podcast back in October, I think, and we kind of talked about that too. Like, our grandparents, our parents, kind of grew up in this generation of like, you got to finish your food. Well, no, you don't. Like I always say, like, we have refrigeration. Like I can sit this sucker in the fridge for a week and it's still gonna taste the exact same. But I have I think a lot of our food habits come from who we learn from our parent. Typically that's going to be our parents, right? We're modeling after those who we see do it. And so a lot of these it kind of starts with us. And so like my kids are young, so I try and be very like aware of some of the things, right? Like my wife and I always try and, like, if I try something, I try not to have my immediate reaction. Like, oh, if I don't like it, that's okay. But I try not to say anything until my kids have tried it first, because if I already, that's gross or something, they already have this in their head. That's terrible. I don't want to eat that. So I have lots of clients who have told me over the years that they can't find any vegetables they like. They only like certain foods and stuff. How do you work with clients like that? How do you kind of incorporate not just vegetables? Like, you don't have to like everything. Like, you don't like, I love protein, but I don't have like 12 different sources of protein I cycle through, right? I have like 2 or 3 I like. So how do you kind of incorporate not just vegetables, but like proper nutrition into their diets?
Yeah. Well, to address the veggies specifically, because that is a topic that comes up a lot. Like, people just do not like vegetables. And I think it is because of previous conversations with parents or with like grandparents, whatever, they were watching them and are like, eat your vegetables. And what's the natural reaction? No, I don't want to. Right. So it creates this like negative relationship with it. But I think the easiest thing to do for a lot of people is pick recipes that need to have vegetables in them. Like, a lot of people don't have such picky tendencies where it's like, I separate every single food on the plate, or like, I only have chicken and mashed potatoes and that's it. Like a lot of people can eat, like, say, peppers and onions, for example, like on a cheesesteak or on a like sausage and peppers, or like throw it into some eggs, like to have like a scramble, something like that. Or like what I used to do as a kid is like mashed potatoes and corn, like mixing that up, like just the simple stuff where it's like, you start there and you're like, okay, so I'm not a veggie hater. I just have specific ones. And then from there you go and say, okay, if I like this one, then this one has a similar texture. Like if I like if I like corn, then I probably might like peas, and then give it a try and have an honest talk and say, do I like this, or does my mind tell me I shouldn't like this? And then you kind of go from there. I mean, another big thing that's been helping like me specifically, because I am 100% that kid that hated vegetables. Like I love the steamables. Like part of the issue with veggies is the preparation. Nobody wants to cut them up. Nobody wants to like do all of that. I toss it in the microwave for 5 minutes and let it do its thing, and boom, it's done. Like that's my biggest gripe with these people that are like, oh, the chemicals, oh, all of these things are horrible for you. It's like, I don't think the chemicals in a bag of broccoli are really what's going to make somebody fat or give somebody a horrible disease. I'm sorry, but like danger's in the dosage. And if something was truly that bad for you, the dosage would be like to the point where the FDA would step in and be like, no, no, no. So that's my little rant on veggies.
No, no, that's exactly, then that's kind of exactly what I do. Incorporated the things like you were just talking about Chipotle, right? That's like, I personally can have Chipotle every day. I've kind of burnt my wife out on it. And so I kind of have to cycle through a little bit, but just adding those fajita veggies on top of it has been I used to not do that. I used to just, I didn't want them on there. I could live without them. Now I don't even taste them. You know what I mean? I just throw them on top.
Or I mean, all those salsas have veggies in them.
Right. And like things like that, like exactly. We're making it like too complicated. Like you don't have to have, a plate of carrots. You don't have to have this, but like things like you said, like a Philly cheesesteak or like something I'm already going to eat, throw it on top. Sausage and peppers, like you said, throw it on top.
Yeah.
I like sauerkraut. I don't think a lot of people do, but like to me, that's just an easy way to throw sauerkraut on a sausage or something.
Yeah. One of my favorite things to do is like not deconstruct, but like recreate a traditionally bad meal and make it better. Like Philly cheesesteak is easy. Instead of getting like a Steakums packet and having these like really fatty cuts, get like, maybe you can't afford a filet, but like a good sirloin or something like that, slice it up nice and thin. And now you have a leaner cut of meat with the peppers and onions, and maybe you get some like Sargento cheese and melt that on top. That's protein packed. It's got way more nutrients than like the local pizza place that'll put it together for you. Yeah. Or like, have you ever done like a Big Mac in a bowl? Basically, you just take all the ingredients of a Big Mac. Like you can get like leaner beef too. Like if you wanted to do like Laura's lean beef, like 93.7 or 96.4, ground it up, cook it up, and then put like pickles, onions, all the stuff, all the dressing, like the secret sauce that they sell, like put a little drizzle of that, and you have a Big Mac in a bowl without the bun. So now you have less calories. It tastes just as good, if not better. And you have all these vegetables, pickles, lettuce, tomato, onion. So there's a million ways to do it.
Nice. I'm gonna write that down. That sounds good. But I think one thing that really helped me too is when I used to start cooking. So I never, like, who would have known salt and pepper, a little bit of olive oil can change an entire meal. Right?
My God. Like, it's incredible what those three can do.
Exactly. Like when I was like in college, kind of on my own for the first time, I had a grill and I would cook. I'd be like, man, why doesn't my steak taste like like that? Why is it so bland and stuff? I was like, I know, just a little bit of salt and pepper, and so like do that with your vegetables too. Like salt and pepper, maybe a little, sometimes you don't even need oil, and it's like I love the air fryer. I buy frozen peppers and onions, throw it in the air fryer. That like the microwave zucchini and squash, like it's fantastic. And it's like canned green beans. They're super cheap. I eat one multiple times a week. Salt and pepper, oregano, like it's totally different. And I think, like when you grow up, you're in the cafeteria at school, your green beans are brown, like, you have like this negative connotation of it. And it's like, you kind of got to make it like, I don't think, and maybe you disagree, but I don't think you need a salad every day.
I have my people try it out for like 3 weeks just to see if it'll stick. And sometimes it does. I'll be honest, majority of the time it doesn't.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm honestly like, if I go to a restaurant and a Caesar salad comes with my meal, I'll eat it. But me personally, I'm not a huge salad fan. And if I really want to enjoy the salad, I have to add all this other stuff to it, and then it kind of defeats the purpose.
Yeah.
Kind
I'm
of a low
honestly,
calorie option there. But
yeah, I'm a bigger fan of the veggie at every meal rather than a salad every
right,
day. Cause then you have some flexibility in there. Cause then you can kind of like make it a little more personal to the meal. And
right,
I just thought of this because as we were talking about it, another good way to sneak veggies in is like plant-based foods. So like me being gluten-free, I hate that I am, but I have to be. Like pasta alternatives like chickpea pasta, red lentil pasta,
okay.
like that stuff does count.
Mm.
So I mean, like if you have all this chickpea, like that's a ton of protein, ton of fiber,
Yeah,
and all the micronutrients of vegetables. So another way to get some veggies in, or
yeah,
like your zucchini squash or stuff like that.
yeah. Yeah, no, and they make like zucchini noodles and stuff too, and
Yeah.
like I think those are great options. But like they don't have to. I think kind of that all or nothing thing too. Like people think like, oh, like I'm having a veggie burger for dinner. Like you don't have to eat a veggie burger every time. You know what I mean? I was like, I'm
Yep.
not. Like I'm gonna eat a beef cheeseburger because I
Yeah.
like it, right? I'm not like you don't have to like. Uh, one thing I used to make a lot. Uh, Probably 2018 or something. I think it came out.
Mhm.
Tom Brady, the TB12 method, came out with his book, and he had a recipe in there for avocado ice cream,
Hmm.
and it is fantastic. It's
Yeah.
avocados like cacao powder, and it's super rich. But
Yeah.
things like that, like better ingredients, probably it tastes awesome. But just because like some of those things are quote unquote healthier for you, doesn't mean it's gonna have. They still have lots of calories. Like all these keto foods and
Yeah.
stuff, they still have lots of calories and stuff.
There
And
are a
so,
lot of people that got fat on keto.
right,
I had a
right,
I had a client that got fat on intermittent fasting. Like that's hard to do,
yeah,
but it happens. It happens. You got to have a full approach. But yeah, I mean, I just talked about this last night with the clients that like some of those diet methods, like as much as we shit on them, their cookbooks are awesome. Like they have
yeah,
some really good recipes in the
yeah, yeah.
cookbooks.
Yeah, no, I think like the best diet's the one you're gonna be able to stick to. You're hitting all your nutrition and stuff.
Yes.
Me personally, I don't like cutting out entire macronutrient groups. I think there's too many benefits from all of them.
Yep.
And so like I don't recommend that. But if you can follow something and stick with it, go for it. Go find out what works for you, right?
Yeah.
Uh,
And
you,
as
you
much
mentioned,
as we shit on things like keto or like other ways like that, there's the right way to do it. And then there's the way that most people do it, which is
right?
usually the Franken foods or like, how can I still eat a shit ton of food without counting calories or counting
Yeah.
portions and stick to this diet and blame the diet when I'm all done and I don't lose any weight?
Yeah, exactly. And you mentioned intermittent fasting there, and so I'm gonna that's a question I actually get asked about a lot. Like intermittent fasting, it's been around a long time.
Yep.
And I would say probably 3, 4, 5 years ago it got really popular. Kind of died off a little bit. Maybe it hasn't. Maybe I'm just so numb to seeing it all everywhere
Yeah.
now, and so
I
maybe
still
maybe
think
it,
there's some diehards out there.
yeah, yeah, and like I think to be honest, I will be the first one to tell you I did this for a long time, and I started doing it kind of unintentionally. I wasn't a big breakfast eater, and so I was like, oh yeah, I could push it off till lunch. You know what I mean? And I was like,
Yep.
and when I was initially like, when I was like trying to lose weight and things like this, it made it so much easier to eat, not just to lose weight. Like intermittent fasting itself. Um, I'm sure there's some benefits to actually fasting. We don't have to get
Yeah.
into that, but the reason why it works so well is because it closes your window on what you're going to eat. I was pretty strict. I'm not going to have my first meal till noon, and I'm going to stop by 8. And so now I have 8 hours of eating rather than, getting up at 6, going to bed at 10 or 11. I have, 18 out, however many hours, what I'm doing. And so it just made it so much easier. It made it much, I should say, it made it much more difficult to overeat. I had to be very like I had to intentionally try and get, because there were times where it was difficult to actually
Mhm.
just hit my calorie goal there. And so
Yeah.
like when you have clients like, maybe they're like me where they don't eat a huge breakfast, and I still wait a couple hours when I get up usually.
Mhm.
Unless for some reason when I'm at hotels I always eat breakfast, not sure why. But for clients that, this is something that they want to do, is this something you recommend, something you talk about it, or something you kind of stay away from?
Yeah. So like with my initial onboarding call, I asked them straight up, I'm like, would you rather do like the traditional 3 and 2, like 3 breakfast, lunch, dinner with a couple of snacks, or like an intermittent fasting approach? And then I won't say it until it's like absolutely necessary, but there's also like a shift work protocol that I have where it's like people that work like in hospitals and stuff like that, like they have one big meal to start their shift and one big meal at the end. That way they don't have to worry about like the craziness of the job and staying consistent with their meal timing. But the intermittent fasting, like, yeah, sometimes for some people it works incredibly well because for that reason, it's hard to eat that much in that window of time, especially with life obligations. And if the quality of food is high, it's damn near impossible to overeat. It's, I mean, it is possible, but it's very, very hard to if you're eating nothing but like high quality, nutrient dense foods. Um, but like for anybody wondering, that client that gained the weight in intermittent fasting basically bought into the bullshit of like, this is magical. As long as I don't eat at this certain time, I can't gain weight and I'll probably lose weight. So during that 8 hour window, it was like Philly cheesesteaks, it was chicken parms, it was like getting a double, triple serving of ice cream at night, loading up on the pasta. And then as soon as that 8 p.m. or 9 p.m. hit, boom, he was done. And then he'd start right back up in the at noon. So it turned into this game of how much could I eat in this little window of time. And when that happens, when portions are not controlled, no diet works.
Right. And, I think what you said there, if you're getting, you're filling up your diet with nutritious foods and things like that. Uh, People who tend to do keto who have success on ketos because, they're filling out their diet with, some of these like these foods just packed with nutrients, right?
Yep.
Like they're like, oh, I can have a ribeye. I don't have to get the strip steak. I can get the ribeye. It has more fat. That's on ketos. But a steak, a 12 ounce ribeye is packed full of nutrients, right?
Yeah.
And that's going to fill you up way more than like a chicken breast, right? It's just packed with so much more nutrition there. And like, yes, you're cutting out carbs, but think how much like nutrition you're adding in there. And so it makes it like try and sit and eat a 12 ounce,
Yeah.
of ribeye. Like you're going to be pretty full, right? Like that's, probably close to, 800, 900 calories. If you sat there and ate 900 calories of mashed potatoes, you can do that easy, right? It's just like some of these things are just more filling for you and things like that. And you mentioned, some of your clients, having one big meal. Um,
Mhm.
Me personally, if I have a really, so when I kind of in a cutting phase trying to lose weight, like Chipotle is going to keep coming up because I eat it so regularly. But what I'll do is I'll take half my meal, put it in a container, and I eat the second half later. I've found that if I wait, an hour or two, eat that second half, that kind of goes as my snack there. If I eat that entire bowl, say I eat it at noon there, it's the same amount of calories as if I spread it out, but I'm still going to be hungry for a snack a couple hours later. And so do you feel like, having big meals, maybe it's just you have to get used to it going long stretches there, kind of like the intermittent fasting, you can push it back. But do you kind of feel like your clients who do have, just like a meal at the beginning of the shift, meal at the end of their shift? I work with some they're truck driving, they can't always like plan their meals. The third shift, they're working the graveyard shift or something like that. Do you find like, you know that their body can adjust to that pretty well?
Yeah, because when it comes to the meal frequency and the meal consistency, that's a really overlooked topic that not a lot of people pay attention to. And even taking it a step further and talking about the nutrients and the calories at each meal, like some people will wonder, like when they eat next to nothing for breakfast, they eat a really light lunch, and then they binge at night, and they're like, oh, I don't understand why I'm binging. And it's like, because you haven't given yourself enough calories in the beginning of the day. So when you get into a rhythm where you're like eating at the same time, eating the same quantity of calories, and ideally the same quality of food, then your body gets into a natural rhythm, because you can actually make yourself hungrier just by having really inconsistent meal timing. Like if you're a breakfast, lunch, and dinner person, and then you switch to intermittent fasting tomorrow, you're probably going to be really hungry in the morning. But a month goes by, now you've adjusted to the intermittent fasting approach. Now you try and transition back to the 3 a day. That breakfast is going to feel like you're force feeding yourself because you haven't had anything for breakfast at all. But our bodies are much more adaptable than we give them credit for. And as long as we stay consistent, they will adapt.
Yeah, and I think that circles all the way back to what we started talking about, like, kind of fitting things in, kind of make fitting things in when you're busy, right? Like when you start working out and you're really busy, like it's gonna seem like stress, right? Every time you make a change, it's gonna seem like it's kind of overwhelming and stuff, but you're gonna get used to it, right? But unfortunately, people don't give it a chance long enough, right? And I don't know this side. I don't know if there's actually, it's probably different for everybody. They say 21 days to make a habit, 66 days to make a habit, but like it's not going to make a habit. Like you can have something a habit, but once you stop it, right, it's no longer going to be a habit. So you have to find a way, to fit this in. And if that's one workout a week, if that's incorporating vegetables into just one meal a day, you know what I mean? Maybe one meal a week to start off if you have to and stuff. But I think kind of like what you said there, if you can stay consistent, if you can, fit some of these things into what you're already doing, like the path of least resistance there, like make it as easy as possible just to get started. I think long term, you're going to look back and be like, this isn't so bad, right? But I always try, like, I try not to call out other programs and stuff. But if you're doing a program that's making you work out twice a day for, let's say, I don't know, more than 70 days in a row or something like that, then chances are, like, I've never have somebody tell me, like, I've been doing this for 6 years now. I've been doing this for a year now. They say, I'm doing this for the third time. I'm doing this again, because it's not, although you stayed consistent, it's not something you can consistently stay consistent with, if that makes sense.
Yep, absolutely. Sorry, my computer's dying.
No worries.
I got to shift. Here we go. Sorry.
That's all right. We get a chance to look that you still have your Christmas decorations up.
Yep. I don't want to make you edit more than you have to, but here we go.
That's cool. We don't edit, but
but yeah, what I was gonna say is just like, when it comes down to it, it's like habits are just a series of making the same decision over and over again. And when you make that decision, every time you do, it becomes easier and easier. The kicker is, are you making good or a bad decision? Is that decision getting you closer or further away from your goals? And when it's getting you closer and closer, it gets easier and easier.
Yeah, and I think that's a good place to kind of wrap everything up there. There's a book called Secrets of the Millionaire Mind by T. Harv Eker, and he talks about how we have doing habits and not doing habits, and everything that we're doing currently, we're in the habit of doing it. The things that we're not doing, we're in the habit of not doing it. And so I think that kind of sums it up really well there. It's just, if you can find something that you can kind of stick to and consistently do that, right? The first time, I think momentum is something that's very overlooked. Like there's momentum in getting started. It takes a lot of momentum to get the ball rolling, and then you can kind of coast. It also takes a lot of momentum the other way as well, right? If you've somebody who's worked out 3 times a week for 6 years, and then you stop for a week, that's going to be really hard for you. Right? It's really hard for me to rest. It's really hard for me to take time and like actually let things heal, because I've been such in this mindset of I need to get this done. And so like, I feel like that's a decent spot to be, but can still be kind of dangerous as well, because then we get back into that all or nothing mentality again.
Yeah, absolutely.
But
absolutely.
Brian, I think we covered, a lot of good topics here today. And I think you have a interesting perspective on some things that I think is very beneficial, especially with dads, especially like talking about nutrition and things like that. If you work with moms over 40, dads, even if you're 20, you're 30, you're 40, you're 50, you've been doing things the same way for a really long time, right? And I don't think we give ourselves enough credit sometimes about the work we put in.
Yeah,
But I think you gave us some simple things that we can kind of focus on, kind of take away there, and kind of make this a lifestyle and something that hopefully we can actually stick to, and not just look for those quick results all the time.
exactly. When you get more mindset, like when your mindset gets more focused on doing it for life rather than just knocking it out in 30 days, that's where everything starts to fall into place.
Exactly. Well, Brian, I appreciate you coming on the show today. I know you have a Facebook group, but you have your own podcast as well, and you're pretty active on social media. So, where can people follow you at?
Yeah, so my Facebook group is the Fit 40 Family, Fit FIT 40 Family, and then the podcast is the Fit 40 Podcast. And then as for social media, pretty much everything is Coach_Fitz FITZZ, the double Z. First one was the single Z was taken, bastard. Oh, I made it all the way into without cursing until just now. Now you have to edit.
Awesome. Well, thanks again for coming on the show today. If you're joining us late, or you hopped in halfway through the episode, Brian was on the show back in October. Go back and look at that one. I believe it's episode 37, and I'm sure we'll have him on again sometime. So thanks for coming on, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for having me.
That concludes this episode of the Fatherhood Fitness Podcast. Thank you for those of you who took time out of your busy schedules to listen. If you have any questions or comments or an idea for a topic for a future episode, please feel free to reach out, and I'd love to hear from you.